The Rise of Africa, the continent, the diaspora, and BRICS explores the relationships that are affecting the global economy right now. This book explores the relationships of the African diaspora's influence on the African continent and why this is important in stabilizing relationships with an understanding of how BRICS impacts the future, good or bad. You can order your copy of The Rise of Africa today on Amazon.com.
NeoDiplomacy is the new currency. NeoDiplomacy is the new currency. The reason that I can say that is you have a couple of different factors occurring right now as we speak on the world stage. The dollar is being disrupted. Nations are no longer wanting to engage with the United States. But the third factor that affects each and every one of us is that there is a diaspora from the African continent that's willing and able to engage our brothers and sisters on the continent.
Let me clear my throat. When I say one, I'm going to say one time. Just stop on the dime now, freeze. Let me clear my throat. Shalom, salama, CME, shalom. Greetings to all my Israelite brothers and sisters from around the world, whether you're of the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the house of Israel, or you're a Gentile grafted into the house under the blood of Yahushua HaMashiach. I welcome you this morning. I was running a little late. I had to get some things taken care of. My son is over in Japan right now. I told him, I said, be careful with those earthquakes. Be careful with Godzilla. I said, don't be on the real life Godzilla movie. Just saying. Because some creatures from the deep, man, they're now starting to rise. I'm telling you, the Leviathan. The seal's being broken. That's the story for another day. I'll let Yakoba handle that one. And Red. Shout out to Red. Red's coming on strong. Please check out your boy Red and Sister Shar, because I'm going to tell you this. Today, I'm coming from a Sister Shar realm. And this was interesting how Sister Shar talked to me about this literally last year. Said, Brother Karras, we need to reach the youth. We need to talk to them. We need to get them. And I was kind of like, I had the drool coming down my mouth. The youth. how the Most High handles me is that I have to get punched in the head a few times. I got to get a couple extremities broken. I have to walk with the limp. I have to realize, oh, I get it now. I see it. This year, as I had begun my academic scholarly profession of being an educator, I was met with a lot of adverse situations. I always have to have the boundaries because, again, what these teenagers are exposed to is all sorts of violent filth. And when they're exposed to the vile and the filth, then they emulate those behaviors. And I quite often express for them to not bring those behaviors into this channel, or excuse me, to the classroom. And because they're kids, I have to provide all of these interesting anecdotes. And I said, listen, I said, your personalities are like turds. And those turds, they are offensive. They can be vulgar. And I was giving them that imagery, and people did not like it. Are you calling me a turd? I said, no, they can be like. So they don't even really understand because they don't listen. And it's funny because since they don't listen, when I call these parents, and I call these parents, there are some parents that have sense and there are some parents that don't. And so when I do call and they say, well, the only thing my child said was this, I said, okay, well, did your child explain to you what that metaphor was? What's the metaphor? It's part of a device, our language device. What your child is supposed to be understanding. That's what I'm supposed to be teaching. But I'm not able to teach that because your child is disrupting the classroom and the learning environment of others. So therefore, your child's not even learning what I'm saying because they're talking too much. Hence, this is why we have this conversation. Hence, and I broke this on down. Hence, this is why when we've been talking about behaviors for a couple of months, I said we're well beyond the point of all of these traditional fixes. That's not going to happen. I said because that defiance shows that there's something of a psychological nature that's going on that I cannot fix. I'm not qualified to handle that. But the people qualified to handle that are school psychologists, and that school psychologist will be able to provide a reference out in town that will be able to help your child. Because I don't feel comfortable with your child being in this classroom until they're able to seek professional help. Sorry. That's how that goes. That's how I am as a teacher. I'm sorry. Nope. I've already been called the N word way too many times this year. Once is enough. The reason I'm talking about that is because yesterday, it was my 8th period, my last period. One of the black children, we have a good rapport. And let me tell you this. The black kids, traditionally speaking, Israelites, African Americans, however you want to call them. And even my Asian, and Latin American, or excuse me, Hispanic kids. They understand, they get it. But for some odd reason, and I know that this is always going to be the case, white kids don't get it. It's hard for them to comprehend what discipline looks like. It's hard for them to comprehend what being able to reap, or excuse me, rather, sow into them the understanding that our kids get at home, but they don't really like to translate that value into the classroom. And so then I have to draw that out of them. Trust me, they're not a fool. They're not fools until they're given the space and opportunities to act the fool. And there was something telling that I said to the student. And I said this. I said, "See, you have to understand some people do not like when they see that you are being taught how to be empowered." No, some people will enjoy you acting a fool. Some people will enjoy you looking destroyed. And when you are taught to then internalize that you are doing exactly what they want you to do, when they start to see that you're starting to get that rung on that leg on the ladder, when you start to understand how you're getting pulled up, when you start to understand how you are generationally breaking the bonds, I said, guess what? I said, you're going to have an enemy. Go after the source, the catalyst of that positive change. I said, that's what's always happened. I had that last year. You didn't think I was going to have it again this year, and I knew. Because it's always, and I hate to say it, it's always the Caucasian kids that crash out. Because why? Because they always utilize our kids for the traditional smoke screens. And I really hate that our kids do not understand that yet. But the great thing is that some of our kids begin to understand it. I said, listen, do you really think that in a school that is predominantly over 70% black and brown, the way that they can maintain their power structure in order is that they have to ensure that you act the fool? Because what that also does is they're not looking at just today, they're looking at in the future. That if you have somebody that can actually think, the hierarchical structure of their system collapses. And it collapses in the classroom. It collapses when you have a strong black man explaining to black children how to use your heads and how to be emotionally in control of your body. Because once you start to understand, once you start to have your emotions in check, then you start to have your feelings, and then you are starting to grasp and understand. And I tell this to the kids, then you're starting to turn on your adult brains. And I see this with all throughout the kids. And what it is you have a feminine problem. And it's not to degenerate or to denigrate, excuse me, women. No, it's not. But you see the ideal of the black male being effeminized in their thinking, in their thought processes, how they're even able to handle themselves. And the funny thing is, in order to correct those things, I told you, part of my job and my military career has always been to fix problems, analyze problems, and fix problems. I problem solve. You may not like how I problem solve, but I will problem solve. I'll come up with the solution. And let me tell you, you may not like how that solution works, but it works. That solution may be so personal that it may damage you. But guess what? Sometimes, in order to heal, you have to undergo some major surgery. Don't worry, you'll live through it. The Most High's given me tons of surgery. He literally made me the $6 billion man after every single spiritual bone in my body was crushed. He put the pins and needles in me. He rolled me on out. I had to go through some spiritual physical therapy. There are some times I didn't want to make it. All the whiles I didn't even get any chance to have no type of spiritual oxycodone. I was straight dealing with pain. Father, can I just have some spiritual morphine? He said, no, you're going to be addicted to it. Because why? Because we always want an opportunity to feel good. We want an opportunity to heal, but we don't really want to confront the pain. And do you understand a lot of what's happening is everything we're dealing with is early a spiritual symptom mass in a psychosis, which just manifests in bad behaviors. And I'm sorry, Florida is kind of the capital of bad behaviors. And I'm literally kind of at the epicenter. When Sister Shauna was doing that video of I-4 and I-75, a familiar sight I see on my commute every single day, Monday through Friday. So I understand when I have to break down things to their level of understanding. Oh, that's kind of nasty. Good. Because that is what people have to deal with bad attitudes. And I said, and let me tell you this, I have all the backing from admin, from the guidance counselor, from the nurse. I said, because understand, a lot of teachers, and I'm going to say this, a lot of teachers are lazy. They just want to come through, give the lesson plans, and they say, oh, well, I can't control the kids. It's just the way that it is. And guess what ends up happening? Because the teachers aren't empowered, because they fall right back into the trap, they end up quitting. There have been over 20 teachers that have quit so far in my school alone. And when teachers quit, that stability starts to crumble, and then you start to get more kids with bad attitudes because that is showing the anxiety of the lack of stability. It's separation issues. These things are real. And it's not funny. It's not to be understated. This has a psychological impact. And so now, then students don't want to feel comfortable because they're going to be looking at you like, are you the next one that leaves? I've already told my students, I said, look, I don't know if I'm going to finish up this year. I said, but while I'm here, you have me here. I said, but at least I try to tell you if I have to go for a little bit of time, I try to give you a warning. The last time I went up to New York, I was gone for a day. I said, hey, I'm going to be leaving in a few weeks and I'm going to make sure that you all have everything together. I'll be back. It kind of fell on a kind of a strange weekend. I said, I'll be back on Monday. I got to get something done at the VA and I'll be back that afternoon. We'll be off on Tuesday. That's Veterans Day. And then we'll be back in the saddle for these next couple of weeks until Thanksgiving. I'm going to say thank you, Mr. Copeland. We appreciate it. I said, because that's the respect that I give to my employers as an employee. I said, so do you not think that I should afford you the same respect? And really, they do appreciate that. They do appreciate that they feel as though they're informed or in the loop. A lot of students enjoy that, so do adults. That's the adult brain. It's just that they emotionalize on it more than what we do. Okay, well, you want to know what? That's fine. I'll just do something else. They don't really have that because they don't know what else to do. They haven't developed that just yet because their what else to do isn't very productive. They go and then they get into their chats and their live streams and everything else. They get into their Discord, they get into their Steam and all these other, servers, and they talk and they say this and they say that. And so yesterday, when I was informed that there are some students that were going to videotape me or record me, and I said, "Oh, I'm shaking in my boots. I'm gonna get recorded." I said, "Recorded for what?" I said, "Is it because I'm now having people take personal responsibility? Is it now because I'm calling people's parents and letting people know how their child is acting and behaving? Is it because you all have to see that there's an actual consequence?" And the reality is, this should hit everyone near and dear to everybody, because at the end of the day, we're all going to be older. At the end of the day, we're all going to rely on our children or grandchildren to help us on out at the closing of our lives. What, you thought that some Musk robots were going to be the ones pulling up out of our beds and wiping our behinds so we're not getting bed sores? See, the reality is that if you don't invest in the youth, you don't invest in your future, and your future starts to look like what it's looking like right now. Because when I ask these kids what is it that they want to do, they're like, they have no idea, they have no clue. I just want to be entertained until the society collapses. And that's literally what they think. That is literally their mind frame. I just want to be entertained until the nuclear bombs hit. Why? Because I know that we're cooked. I know we're done. They can't explain what's happening in the White House. They just know that this is bad. They can't explain what's happening or what they're trying to do in Venezuela. All they know is It's bad. And that's actually the perfect setup, because when you have a people that are mentally ill equipped to think about the consequences of invading a sovereign country, well, then you've dumbed down the population enough to where, sorry, that was World War II, Nazi Germany. You've given enough in terms of propaganda. You've given enough in terms of bread and circuses. You've given enough in terms of bolstering people to the point where they're happy spending money that they don't have and losing jobs because this economy is collapsing. I told you that the economy collapsed about 6 months ago, but nobody didn't want to listen. I said that you're going to start to see that the economic collapse end of the year. When the economy's in economic collapse, pretty soon by about February, March, we're going to be in free fall. But we're going to be in free fall, but we're also going to be in a war. I'm just not totally convinced that that war is going to be with Venezuela. To me, I'm not totally convinced about that. Remember, they'll give you this smoke and then they'll give you this mirror. Because the reality is, as you go through this day, these days are designed to drag you down and drag you down and drag you down. Because you want to know why? Because you're the only one that sees how this thing goes. And it's hard and it's difficult. Imagine going to work where you know that there are kids that don't like you, that want to see you fired, or even worse. So my day is going to be interesting here in the next hour and a half when I go and tell admin, excuse me, I had a threat made against me with some students wanting to film me. I don't know what that could be. I don't know what that could render. I don't know the intent of these kids' imaginations. So then I'll have to get some students removed. And the great thing about middle school is that everybody talks to everybody. So over these last couple hours in the evening, students are going to be prepared with different things. Oh yes, and I did tell them that Ninja Firewolf. I said, because I don't know what they'll try to do via AI. I gave you that rendition of my voice and my likeness. How I was able to even do my AI rendering, my avatar. I did that a couple, I think, last year. And trust me, it got better. Oh no, these students are not black. No, they're not. That's what I told you. Look, they don't like me at all. And it's not that they don't like me, they don't like the idea of who I represent. They don't like the fact that I'm a strong black man that is understanding and knowledgeable. And I just look, I'm sorry. I'm one of those people, I really don't conform very well. Because why? Because I understand the system, I understand how things go, and then I understand how to work within the system. Now, I told you this when I said I'm going to break behaviors. The students weren't very happy that I gave them the model of how behaviors will be broken. I was talking to one of the research participants yesterday after the research study, the interview, and I said, "Yeah, this is what's happening, this and that." I said, "But I understood the key solution." I said, "I'm going to start to affect parents' pockets." And I would ask the kids, I said, "What?" I said, "Is a punishment without monetary consequences, i.e., if you don't have to pay a fine, is that really a punishment?" I said, "Raise your hand if you think it's a punishment. Raise your hand if you don't think it's a or if you don't think it's a punishment." They all raise their hands or excuse me, I always mess up on my canvassing. They raised their hands when they understood that it's not a consequence if you're not losing any type of resources. I said, so understand that when that student needs to get help, I said, understand what that will do to their parents or guardians when they have to go to the appointment that will be set up by the school so they can see a child psychologist to be able to deem the cause of their behavioral issues. I said, so what do you think happens? Do you ever hear of the expression, time is money? I said, so then what happens when your parents' time has to be spent on addressing your behavior? When I explained that to every single class yesterday, they understood the assignment. Because then I said, now think about your position. I said, think about your household. I'm in a relatively low income area and they're living paycheck to paycheck for most people. So even my kids that traditionally have had behavioral issues, once they started to understand that, they started to realize, oh, I can actually affect my living situation. I can actually now affect my parent, the livelihoods. And I said, now think about that consequence. I said, because y'all just can't be going on over destroying people's property. What would they be doing? They'll be calling the cops first and then they'll be suing you to have their property paid for, to be restored by your destruction. I said, so what? You think you can come here and just have the free pass on crazy? No, you can't. And see, a lot of what we've gone through was We think, and we've allowed, I'm not going to say that, they've allowed aliens to run everything. And then when the teachers feel that they're powerless, then the teachers quit. Because what ends up happening is that people become so emotionally drained and tired that they don't want to actually think about the situation and how to have a solution for it. And I told this to the kids. I said, you met the right one. I don't need to be emotional. I just have to put on my thinking cap and I just have to diagram a solution or model that works out for every one of us. Because at the end of the day, it's my intent isn't to harm you, but my intent is to have you have help. And let me tell you, when that started to have the hamster wheels turning, especially with our black children, when those Hispanic children started to get those wheels turning, and even some of the white children, there were those with the gatekeeper spirit. They knew that that was war. I'm telling you, that spirit of oppression hits our children sooner than you realize. And when I saw that the other day, yesterday, when I realized, oh, they're going to try to come after me. Okay. And I always tell them this. I always give them these caveats. I give them these explanations. I've spoken with admin. I've spoken with the office. I've spoken with the nurse. I've spoken with the guidance counselor. I've spoken. And guess what? They all think it's a fantastic idea. I love to have some secondary resources in both. Surprise, surprise, lo and behold, from futurism.com. I put that link in the chat earlier. Social media is absolutely nuking children's brains. New research finds our study suggests that it is specifically social media that affects children's ability to concentrate. Oh, isn't that psychological? A barrage of AI generated brain rot is haunting children across numerous screens, from personal smartphones to school issued laptops to televisions. Social media is adding significantly to that cacophony, making it harder than ever for kids to concentrate. Now, new research from Karolinska Institute in Sweden and Oregon Health and Science University has found a significant link between screen time and diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, suggesting that exposing young brains to social media could have major mental health implications. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Two or three witnesses, as detailed in a new paper published in the journal Pediatrics Open Science. The researchers followed 8,324 children aged 9 to 10 years old in the U.S. for 4 years. hold on. Hold on. Let me do my public school math. 9 to 10 plus 4 is about 13 to 14 in that range. Oh, amazing. That's what I deal with every day. The children self reported how much time they spent on social media, watching TV, or playing video games. Their parents also assess their ability to pay attention and any signs of hyperactivity. So, what do you think they do? Do you think that just stops at home? Nope, not at all. They bring that with them to school. And then their behaviors get worse because there's no boundaries. Because there's no boundaries that are set, and there's really no boundaries that's reinforced. And I told that to the kids. I'm not here to be your friend. Hey, I thank the Most High that I'm in here, that I've had to learn a thing or two. If I get fired, I get fired. But I know one thing, listen, at least I was doing righteous. There's one thing for being fired for being wicked and doing some detestable things, but when you're fired because you're trying to have kids understand what they're doing and getting them on the right path. Now, granted, the kids that understand this and the parents that understand this, they enjoy me. And the kids, guess what? When they realize that their attitudes were holding them back and they see their progress and they see their gains and they see how they're able to formulate sentences, guess what ends up happening? Well, they get confident. And when they get confident, guess what? They get bold. And when they get bold, they get courageous. And when they get courageous, they're able to speak and articulate and understand. Oh my goodness. And I'm like, look at you. And I'm sorry, I love to see that on a young man, young woman's face when they're starting to be confident and bold. Because then they realize that all of this negativity that they've gone through and experienced, it's just lies. The lies of the enemy that our kids are exposed to every single day, every single hour, and really every single moment. If you know that we're coming up out of captivity, what do you think the enemy's going to try to do? He's going to try to target our kids. Bring just a souvenir, just bring a gift to Babylon with you. Bring this, bring that. And there's going to be some people that do that. But there's going to be some people that say, man, forget that mess. Forget that filth. That's the same mess. That's the same filth that messed up my parents, that messed up my grandparents, that messed me up, even to an extent. I'm glad I'm able to escape this. Isn't that crazy that that's the hope of our children and our children's children is that they get a chance to escape the generational curses? See, I know this message hits different for people because why? Because they have to understand, our people have to understand we've been under a generational curse since we've been born. But now the hope is, the blessing is, they are now getting out of their generational curse. Man, that's a blessing. That's awesome. Because again, once you start to have a child be confident, then they start to innovate. And once they start to innovate, then they begin to open up areas of thought that we hadn't even touched or considered or realized. That's what's supposed to happen from generation to generation. Our generations are supposed to do better and be better. When your generation then digresses, guess what? That's a failure. And even they know that this is a failed generation. And I look on a lot of the people's faces. I look on a lot of the young men, the young women's face at 13, 14 years old, and they don't even know what they want to be. I want to do something that I know can make money, but I don't know what's going to be on out there for me to make money. Some of them don't even understand what the concept of money would be in that time. I'm still trying to figure that out myself. Well, you may be on universal income because chances are we're probably going to be right there on the North Korean model. And it's not funny. That's not even funny. That's what they're getting ready to look at. If you're on universal basic income, basically you're enslaved. You're just enslaved as a society. The only escape you have is to literally be a government official because you're literally a debt slave. I pray that that's starting to make sense for you, to you all. This is why they didn't realize that hundreds of years ago, they perfected their own multi generational prison when the Most High gets us out of here. That's how the Most High sets up these okadokes. That's how he sets up these okey-dokes. That's how the Most High works. You may not see it, you may not understand it. It may be hundreds of years off, but when it happens, it happens. So that's why I say here, please pray for our children. And please pray that they have and that they're put in the path of righteous educators, Yah fearing educators. We're on out there, we're just few and very far between. Because when they see that there's somebody that actually genuinely cares for their future, cares for them, they gravitate towards you. Because kids aren't stupid. They know when people are genuine and they know when people are fake. So this morning, as I'm being accused of crashing out, I got to start crashing out on some of these reports. Those two students, oh yeah, they will be removed. Unfortunately, I did have to tell the one student, "Hey, listen, here's the consequences." And I can understand. He overheard, and there were obviously Caucasian students. He was trying to understand who they were because he doesn't really, a lot of the students, they don't really like to interact with each other like that. But he called out another student in the class and say, "You there? You heard them." And he put that other student on blast. And so that other student had to give up the information. And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, it looks like I got a lot of stuff to do tomorrow." Because they all try to protect the people's honor, and because they're kids, they don't know any better. But when I tell them the consequences, then they start to have things click. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Okay, well, this is and this. So yeah, those students, for their actions, they could be potentially facing legal jeopardy in the form of criminal and civil liabilities, depending on their actions. And it's not for me to be petty. Oh, well, I just want them to learn. No, I'm sorry. I did that last year with the N-word incident. And then that student, because they thought that they had the crocodile tears, they kept doing it and doing it. And she actually almost found herself in trouble with other students, especially black students, because she didn't know how to stop. And the saddest part was there was a black teacher that was there, a female teacher, giving aid and comfort. And I said, "Why are you doing that? She don't even like you." It's like, come on, she save me, and then be calling you the N-word the next moment. Oh, please pray for our people too. Because you understand that is literally the causality. Oh, y'all don't even like yourselves anyway. I can call you all this and call you all that, and y'all gonna be opening me with open arms. That's pretty shameful. So yes, we are our own worst enemies. We are. And that is why you have you had those girls that I'm going to be dealing with today confidently open their mouths in the midst of a demographically unsupported population that is not a positive for them. And I don't care when they know that they have a teacher that cares for them, you don't understand how much they'll ride for you. That class was like, who was saying it? Who was saying? Nah, man. It's like, calm down, calm down. We'll get to the bottom of this. So I had to reassure. I said, calm down. I said, the adults handle it. We'll get everything together. You don't need to worry. I said, but sometimes people don't like to be corrected. And sometimes people don't like to understand the consequences. But understand that's just not anything in the bottle. That's the nature of what they're dealing with as a people right now. And that's the consequence of them literally living through the curses. We would have healed Babylon, but she refused to be healed. Take the balm, take the ointment. They're rejecting it. Let that be a practical lesson of biblical understanding if you've never seen it before, if it's never been demonstrated in this type of model. So, I got a lot of stuff to do today. Yeah, that mental health, it is real, family. That mental health is real. And so I thank each and every one of you that you come to my mental health and therapy sessions. I'm so glad that I'm able to speak about my mental health issues with you all online here at YouTube. I'm just laying up here on the couch on the pillow, staring and just telling you all my problems. Uh, uh, okay, I need you to think and I need you to breathe. What is it that you could be doing? How do you approach this? Do you breathe? Do you have timeout exercises? Are you able to distance yourself from the situation? Do you have things to de escalate? I do. I talk to folks on YouTube. Hey, if I told you, if I don't laugh, I'm going to be crying. I told you that. Oh, but no, listen, that's what happens when the enemy just wants to attack you. Because look, the enemy attacks when you are effective. The enemy don't be attacking people that are ineffective. I haven't really had any enemy attacks. Okay, well, guess what? You're doing great for his kingdom. You are not a threat. But when you are a threat, oh, he sees, he realizes, and he's going to do what the enemy does. But thank you, family, for your continued support. I do appreciate it. Thank you for those that give to this channel. It is a blessing. Thank you, family, for your prayers. They are a blessing. They do hold me up. There are some days that I do just get tired. No, look, there are some teachers. Look, some teachers only it's psychological. You do have health and it is mental health is a thing, and I was getting dragged down. Let me tell you this: these last couple of days, and this was even before what happened yesterday. These last couple of days, I was literally in bed by about 9:15, and I would just try to like read the word. I would fall asleep with my iPad on me because I was just getting exhausted. I was getting tired. I was getting so tired. I was like, oh, I need to start quitting this. I need to get this out of here. I need to remove some things. We all do that. I need to take inventory because something I'm over inundated. Did I handle too much? We all go through that because we get exhausted because we're getting dragged spiritually. And then I understood, oh, there's the attack. That's why. Makes sense. Hallelujah. Thank you, Father. Thank you for revealing that. And now I know how to work through this. And I was telling you, look, I'm telling you, yesterday, when that morning got started, I threw my hands up in that classroom and I prayed and I said, thank you, Father, that you're going to break every single demonic presence and entity that comes into this classroom in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. I said, because I'm in here for not for me, for your glory. It's for your glory. And I had some people try me, and then guess what? It would break. It would dissipate. And then by the end of the class, we're talking like everything's normal. At the end of the day, it's not really it's psychological, but really it's always spiritual. And yeah, look, a lot of these teachers, they don't care. You get paid about literally effectively, you get paid about the same as working for waste management. And you have to deal with less stuff when you're dealing with people's garbage. It's sad, but it's true. And a lot of teachers, look, they get burnt out. And you can tell that they're getting burnt out. You just see their countenance is just, man, it's real. It's sad. So I do have to actually like psychologically counsel teachers. Hey, what's going on? What's happening? What's this? What's that? Some teachers, they're just there. They don't even care. Students will just be this and that, and then they'll be punching other students in the head. Like, what you gonna do? Thank you, family. Thank you for your prayers. Continue to keep me up in your prayers. I gotta go to war. I mean, at school. I mean, the psych ward, however you want to call it. All right. I love you all with the love of the Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach. And I pray that you all be blessed, that you all have been blessed by this message of encouragement. And please pray for your children and your grandchildren and all those that are still growing up in this system, because your prayers are needed for our people in this generation. So, with that said, family, shalom, salama, siyemi, shalom, peace and blessings. Yasharel.